Hello, everybody. We are terribly sorry, but Friday afternoon Zoom problems. As usual, going live to Facebook. We don't have problems on any other days. I don't know if there's just lots of traffic with lots of webinars on Zoom on a Friday lunchtime, but we do apologise that we're a little late. We are trying to go live to Facebook, and so apologies for those of you that have been hanging around. So yes, rejection sensitive dysphoria this week, which is quite interesting because now I'm having those feelings of rejection. What's everybody going to think because I've messed up and I put the event on Facebook on the page and now it's all gone wrong technically, which is not my fault, but what are people going to think? So I have to now exercise my own kind of learnings from this week, don't I, Steph,
Yeah.
about these feelings of rejection, which I have read 99% of adults with ADHD have some form of oversensitivity to rejection, and up to a third of us find that it is one of the most debilitating, if not the most debilitating aspect of our ADHD. So this sensitivity to rejection, oversensitivity, or rejection sensitive dysphoria. So it is pretty common, isn't it, Steph? So the people that you coach, how universal is it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is just, again, so pervasive. I think the figures were like, I think 98% of ADHD is supposed to have RSD, but it varies in severity. It also very much varies in how it manifests in, how it translates, in terms of our behaviors. So whether you're a people pleaser, whether you're an avoider, whether you're a perfectionist, a combination of all of those, or also there's some of us that kind of go on the offensive. We kind of, anticipating you're probably going to reject me, but I'm going to get there first. I'm quite kind of angry and don't, F with me type of thing. So yeah, it's a very...
Yes, it is. And I thought that everybody else was like this. I just thought I'm just the only one expressing it because before I got diagnosed, I just assumed everybody felt like this. I just couldn't keep a lid on how that kind of bubbled out of me. But it was Dr. William Dodson that first coined the phrase rejection sensitive dysphoria. And it is unique to ADHD, but when they were kind of talking about the ADHD symptoms donkeys years ago, because they can't measure rejection and that kind of emotional dysregulation side of things, they decided to throw it out as a symptom, even though it's almost universal. And it's one of those main symptoms that they ignored because it's not tangible enough to measure. You can measure hyperactivity and inattention, but you can't really measure that sensitivity to rejection. And that word dysphoria literally means hard to bear, which actually really resonates with me because I find it's like a physical pain and it comes on really suddenly, and it can flip me into like what feels like a deep depression really suddenly, but it's not a depression, it's actually the RSD. But it feels as if, I can go from being perfectly normal, perfectly happy, to have an argument with somebody, and then all of a sudden you just feel almost suicidal, and the pain is just so difficult, and you just think I can't bear this. It flips your mood completely. And I understand that a lot of adults with ADHD have been misdiagnosed with rapid cycling bipolar because of it, because obviously that deep depression that can be flipped into, or some kind of emotionally unstable personality disorder, because of the kind of the quick way and the vortex that we can spin into very, very quickly. We can go from normal to that severe pain of rejection really, really quickly. So I find that really interesting. But there's a lot we can do in the moment and generally, isn't there, to try and kind of mitigate for the pain of this rejection and kind of how challenging this is in our relationships, in the workplace, with parenting, all of this kind of thing. So I don't know if there's any tips and tricks that you've got off the top of your head, or that stuff that your clients use, Steph, before kind of we can talk about the stuff that we've maybe sort of touched upon this week.
Yeah, again, it varies from person to person because it's so kind of deep rooted. And as you said, dysphoria, it's very difficult when you are feeling that pain to kind of, you know, do anything, to think clearly, because you are so emotionally dysregulated. Because it's dysphoria. It's that really kind of physical, crippling pain. So again, like what we talked about in lunchtime lockdown, I think we did a session, remember, on the kind of, was it emergency toolkit, you know, so the things that you can do, like, so you anticipate, right? And you prepare so that you know that you don't have to think, what do I do? What do I do? You've got like a set of like strategies to use, but definitely best as well to kind of get into a habit again. So when these things hit, they won't hit so hard, or it'll just kind of come automatically in terms of, like, say, reframing, you know, instead of assuming like we so often do, like if someone's late, a lot of ADHD is, right, you know, it's like they're rejecting me or they don't turn up, and we immediately think, you know, it's because of us, or, you know, what have I done, or I've been rejected. But maybe that person's had an accident, right? You know, but we always kind of assume the worst. So it's about kind of checking in with yourself and hopefully kind of reframing it. Well, it could be this, it could be that, and looking back at evidence of how you know, you are a good friend, or you are really good at a certain thing, and, you know, trying to get better perspective.
Yeah, it's recognizing that you've slipped into that kind of emotional dysregulation, and that is very hard to do. But I found it so much easier recently to kind of have that thinking time and pause, to do that assessment that you said, Steph, about kind of, you know, get what evidence do you have that, you know, they're late because they hate you, or that this whole room thinks you're an idiot because you said the wrong thing or you interrupted. You don't have that evidence. But if you keep your tank filled, your well-being tank, it's much easier, much easier. And that's the same with anything to do with our ADHD, regulating our attention. It's easier to do if we keep our tank filled. But what you do have to recognize is when your tank is empty and you are hungry and you are tired, or you have been using your executive function, so you've been concentrating for hours, that's when it's more likely to strike, because using that executive function will empty your emotional regulation tank. So you have to be really careful about being mindful about, okay, I've got to be extra careful. We're in the danger zone now for slipping into that rejection sensitive dysphoria. And what I've also found really helpful, and members can go back on the portal and have a look at the negative self-talk on that we did, and kind of talking to yourself in a really positive way. Because what I've also found, since I've been working very hard on that aspect of my ADHD and quelling that negative self-talk, that because I'm on my own side, it's easier to kind of regulate that rejection now. Because before I would kind of be on the other person's side, the negative self-talk side. You'd be like, well, yeah, obviously they hate you because blah, blah, blah. And now you're kind of on your own side. It's much easier to kind of assess and go, okay, what evidence? No, you are a good person. No, you haven't, you know, blah, blah, blah. You're not sort of beating yourself up alongside these imaginary people that you imagine are doing it too. So I found that's a really good strategy to kind of regulate in the moment. And also looking at why you might be worse. Your ADHD causes it, obviously, with your neurobiochemistry, which is a long word for a Friday afternoon. However, because we were rejected a lot as kids and different, we might have been neglected a bit by our parents because they've possibly got ADHD, more than likely. We might have been bullied at school or made to feel different. We've had all of this programming, and if we're aware of it, Steph, we can do something about it. And I always have your voice in my head, which I love. Name it to tame it. You always say name it to tame it. So is this something that is should we sort of delve deep into this and do that audit from kind of childhood as to why? Will that take the sting out of it? It has done for me. You know, do others find that helpful?
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is where kind of therapy can be really helpful, in addition to obviously ADHD Unlocked and coaching and other things, reading, getting using sense checks, like with your friends, sense checking the position, because obviously when your friend goes off sometimes, Mish, you and I, and you kind of say, oh, but Mish, how can you say that? Look at, remember this and this and this, building up the evidence. And then you go, oh, I guess, no, that's okay, fair enough. Yeah, we need that kind of feedback. And I think William Dodson talks about the opposite, or was it Dr. Hallowell? Instead of rejection sensitive dysphoria, that the opposite is recognition responsive euphoria.
Oh.
Yeah, recognition responsive euphoria. And that's kind of like the antidote to RSD. So, and that's all about encouraging a lot of positive feedback for ADHD. So when they talk about kids with ADHD and how to handle their RSD in particular, so recognizing what they do well, because when we get that, it's like we literally go the opposite. It's the opposite of dysphoria. We're like euphoria, we're euphoric. And sometimes, I guess with some people and some ADHDs, it can look like kind of a bit of a manic thing, because we're so up and down, aren't we? At literally so quickly.
Yeah, and that is another reason why so many of us get misdiagnosed with bipolar, because not only can that RSD slip you into what looks like a deep depression and rapid cycling, what you talked about with that euphoria, and then sometimes when we're hyper focused, it looks like hypomania for bipolar. But actually, a lot of it is down to this sense of self and this unstable sense of self and the rejection that we feel because we're rejecting ourselves a lot of the time, is what I've come to the conclusion. So the less we reject ourselves, the less likely it is that we're going to get sucked into that vortex. But it's really, really horrible. And, I've so many times that it's just all consuming, and it feels like you're on fire almost. And you've got to, it's really hard to put it out in that moment. But, there's lots of things we can do. And, those, if you can have that thinking time, that CBT moment of, look, what evidence do you have? Try and take the emotion out of it, try and write things down, or if you can't, you're in a room, just kind of step back and breathe and do that kind of exercise. But it's bloody hard. And I don't think we're ever going to completely get rid of it, but being aware of it and being aware that it's a huge part of your ADHD, because not many people talk about it.
No, because because they don't see how it manifests. Like as soon as you start talking about the people pleasing, the avoidance, I'm not even going to try that activity because, if I can't do it, I'm not doing it. It's got to be perfect. I've got to be perfect beyond reproach. Like I see this a lot in coaching with clients where, they are perfectionists. They're the ones that kind of work the hardest. They're always there. They need to go the extra mile, the really long emails because they've got to justify their position. And it's a bit too much so, but there's that fear of I have to be right. I can't be wrong. And that's crippling in itself. The perfectionism is crippling in itself, but that's what a lot of us use to overcome, that rejection sensitive dysphoria, because that's even more kind of crippling, right, than the perfectionism. So it's being aware of how it manifests for you. Like what behaviors do you guys use to compensate, to cope with your RSD? Because then, that's what you then need to kind of maybe address. But as Mish was saying, the main thing is to really develop that inherent self-love and self-worth, right? Because that's that core. Which you can do in lots of ways.
Yeah, absolutely, which we're going to be doing some more work on, and we have done some work on, and those videos and resources can be found in the members portal. But there's all sorts that goes along, people pleasing, and I've gone into hermit mode simply because of RSD before, because I think I can't post because people are going to, I can't post on social media, or that people are going to laugh at my blog, and you get sucked into it, and it's so hard. It's like coming out of quicksand, trying to pull yourself out. And that's when you need your community and your friends. And very grateful to you for pulling me out of the mire, Steph, when I've been stuck in the RSD bog and can't get out, battling to get out. But it's really, really difficult, and we do recognise how debilitating this is, and communicating this to your friends and family and your significant people in your life, you know, in the workplace, is really, really important.
Yeah, and the thing is, from what I've seen there, as we know, trying to communicate this to other people, particularly in the workplace, can end up triggering your RSD because they don't understand, or they put in accommodations that actually exacerbate your challenges and make you look even more incompetent. Like it has to change. I mean, yeah, we could go on about this forever, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but look, I think with ADHD Unlocked and the topics we're covering, like embracing failure was another one we've done recently, communicating our ADHD and our challenges. I mean, this stuff, you know, we've got it all on the portal, and we've been encouraging our members this week as well to revisit, you know, the week we did on embracing failure and negative self-talk, because yeah, it's very layered, isn't it, our ADHD and what we need to do. There's a lot of work we have to do, but together and like in the community, and it's just a lot more easy, accessible to do. But it doesn't stop. We've got to keep working at it.
Yeah, it's like exercising. You have to keep doing it, or the benefit goes away. But as Michael's just said in the chat, and thank you, Michael, we are all in this together, and this is what we're here for, because we understand the pain and we've all shared that pain. So we can help alleviate it. So next week, talking of pain, we're looking at relationships. So different perspectives here. So Steph's married and in a relationship. I'm not in a relationship. So we'll be looking at how you can make your relationships better if you are already in a relationship. And I'm doing a special webinar at 11 o'clock next Thursday, which is public, on how we get into relationships that aren't necessarily good for us and how to avoid it in the future, because, you know, all related to our ADHD and low self-esteem, etc. So, going to be an exciting week.
Yeah, you're supercharged for this one, Mish. I can see it. Yeah, no, so join us, because the webinar on Thursday, that's open to everyone. But obviously, if you want the full week's focus, and we're going to have our special guest, hopefully, Priya, that we spoke to, the marriage counsellor we spoke to during the lunchtime lockdown. So she's going to be available to our members to support as well, hopefully next week. So yeah, do join us. We've still got our offer on. So October is ADHD Awareness Month. So, you know, we're trying to get in there a little bit early here. So definitely, yeah, make the most of our offer and join us.
Yeah, so up to half price off. It's, you know, less than the cost of a takeaway for a whole month, and you get access to all our resources. So we're really excited. So join us before Monday for a whole week of relationships, which is an area that a lot of adults with ADHD struggle with. But yeah, have a great weekend. Make sure you fill your tanks. And Steph, it's wonderful to see you looking so much better, but do take it easy and do fill your tank.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody's feeling well, but take care. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you and seeing more new members on Monday. So thank you very much. And we will see you next week. Thanks everybody for joining. Take care. Bye-bye.